Okay, guys. So again, this whole lecture on applying materials, rendering, and lighting here on Rhino. Okay, so we created some basic geometry, some basic forms, right, with our solid tools right here, and I'm doing certain Boolean unions and subtractions, right? So I do a little sphere right here. Right? I type Boolean difference, subtract from this one, and created that and created some forms like here. Okay, so if you go properties, layers, materials, these are all the materials right here on your model. By default, this list should be empty, but we can create a new material by clicking that plus sign right there. And we have these standard ones right here: custom, gem, glass, metal, paint, picture, plaster, plastic. Right, so even then I can create the gem ones are pretty interesting, they're pretty fancy, right? So we have gem type, and then the gems, a diamond, aquamarine, ruby, sapphire, right? And I can, the list keeps going on and on, right? I can do a plastic material, I can give it a color, right, for this plastic, right? I can give it a reflection, right, for the material right there with that slider, and you see the preview changes. Transparency, I can make the plastic a little bit transparent, right, so I can see a little bit through it. And then the clarity, is it frosted or is it polished, right? So again, very, very glossy. All right, so we have developed right here a list of materials. You guys have some materials? All right, now the idea is how to apply the material to the object, because if I go to my preview right here and I click on render, right here, guys, if I go to my display mode and I click on render, they don't have the material, right? These objects don't have the material. So if you select the material right here on the right and you right click on it, it brings this menu right here. You see it? Notice that it says assign to objects, assign to layer, or assign to layers, or select objects, right? So I can assign it to an object individually, or I can assign it to a layer globally, right? So if I assign it to a layer, all those objects are going to be of that material, right? So assign to layers, if I click right there, and then it's going to ask me, hey, what layer do you want to assign it to? I'm going to do the default right there, and I hit OK. Notice that all of the materials, right, receive that, all of the material, all of the objects receive that material, right? Go ahead and try it. All right, let me pause this right here. Oops. So again, I can assign it to right, so I can assign it, and by the way, you can change, if your screen might look a little bit different, right? I have the different display, right? If you click on this menu right here, right there, and you go to horizontal layout, you see it as I'm seeing it right here. Or if you click again on that menu right there, you see it. I think some of you guys are seeing it like this, and then you go thumbnails. I think some of you guys have like small like that, or anyway, I like to have my displays on the horizontal layout, and thumbnails, I'll do them large like that. So again, I can right click on the material, assign to object. It's asking me, hey, what object do you want to assign it to? Right, that one right there, right click, and that gets assigned to that material. However, right, I can even further add it, right? So if you use Control Shift and select, right? So Control Shift and select some of the faces, right? You can do that, and I can do assign to objects, right? And I can do that goal section right there. And this is important, right, guys? So if you watch my screen, right, let's say that again, I only want to add a change of material right there inside. So I do Control Shift and click, right? Right click, assign to object, and I have changed that right there. Control Shift click, right click, assign to object, right? And I have that right there. All right, or just like I did over here, I can do Control Shift, select that. It shows me that it has that material right there. It has yellow, but if I right click over here, assign to object, it changes that material right there. And I can keep going, or I can Control Shift these objects right here, go through my list, right? Assign to objects. There's that object. Right, class, right click, assign to objects. I have that right there. Okay, so you guys have some objects with a few materials right there? Yeah. All right. So that's a this right here. It's a render preview. It's not really a rendering yet. Okay. So the way that we actually get an actual rendering, right, is we first select our view. Let's say that we want to do something like that, right? You have your rendering sphere over here, right? So if you place your cursor on top of this blue sphere right here, there's two options, right? With the left click, you do a render. With the right click, you go to render settings, right? You can see right there on my screen, render settings. Go ahead and do a left click, which is a render, and this window should pop up. And you'll see that now the software is rendering, right? Now it's actually computing the materials and their attributes such as reflection, transparency, glossiness. So the software is generating an image for us. And again, that includes shadows. Right? You see that some of my objects are kind of floating, and they cast this shadow. No, positive. And again, you see how the software right here on the bottom left, it gives us an estimate. It's not the most accurate one, right? It says rendering 97%, 3 seconds reminding. I doubt that, right? Be 1, 2, 3, and it's still rendering. So it's not very accurate. The calculation in terms of the time remaining. But let me go ahead and wait for it, right, to finish rendering, just to show you guys. Is your guys done? Yeah. All right. So once the rendering is done, right here on the upper left corner, you'll see this floppy disk. It says Save Image As. For me, it's not habilitated yet because the rendering is not done. But for you guys, it should. Right? You guys see this Save As? Go ahead and click there. Right, so now for me it's habilitated, right? That's the floppy disk right there, Save Image As. I click there. We can create some like a render test folder, or I'm just gonna call this RT, render test, RTT1. All right, let's go ahead and save it. And if I go to that folder right here, I have that image right there, which if we let's compare it, right? Right now, Antonio asked me, right, well, isn't it the same, or what's the difference, right? Couldn't I just do a screen capture, right? So if I go to view, captured to file, and I can do an OK right here. I'm gonna save it on the same folder, right? Render test. I'm gonna call it RTT, right, 2, so that maybe we could see them side by side. Right, so that's the rendering right there. And this is the screen capture. All right, whoops. So you'll see how certain things are different, right? Particularly the glass materials, right? So this one, it looks more translucent than the actual finish right here. You'll see that the gold has a certain texture that the screen capture doesn't have, but the rendering does. And again, it might not be that evident right now, right? But trust me, the moment where you actually want a rendering and not a screen capture will come, which is on the project itself, right? I mean, with the project you guys are working on. All right, so I'm gonna close those, close that right there. Now, if you actually right click on the blue sphere and open the Rhino settings, the Rhino render settings, right, go ahead and do that. Right, so again, is the right click on the render setting right there. You guys get this window? No? Right click on the blue sphere? No? Alright. So it might be right here, guys, for you. Right here on the left. Right? So just, well, it's up to you, but I like to float it right here. So I just drag it and drop it over here. But you know, it's up to you. You know, I like to see it kind of big right there. So this is a really important window right here. Okay, so the first thing that you actually have, right, if you collapse this bars like that I have right here, right, and you go to a resolution and quality, right, notice that right now it's set to the viewport dimensions, but you can customize those sizes. And right now the DPI, the dots per inch, which is the pixels, right, it's set to 72. Standard one or a low quality one should be around 150, right? And the good one, such as the final one, should be around a 300 DPI. Right? So you see that right now it's low, right? So if you start changing these numbers, right, to 150, and the quality, you'll see that also you have low, draft, good, and final, right? And you want to use them as such, right? I mean, whenever something is just for a review, right, internal in class, you can do a low or a draft quality. But whenever you're working on your final board, your final presentation, you want to do something that is good or final quality for the rendering. But that also carries a cost, right? I mean, the better the quality, the longer that the rendering is going to take to compute, right? Because it's going to add more detail. So right now, I'll leave it on good quality. Notice that the next one, the next tab right here is the backdrop. Do you guys see that? All right, notice that the backdrop, it says is set to a solid color, white. That's the background, right? So if I go ahead and select the green, you see a green sky. You guys see that? And not only that, but I can do a gradient, right, between one color and another color. right? So I can create this gradient, right? So go ahead and try that between a solid and a gradient, and you can mix, right, colors. We're not gonna do the 360 environment right now, just the solid colors and the gradients. You can actually import, you can download them or you can make them. I don't know if you've seen like on the Facebook when they upload a 360 image that you can place your cursor and you can actually look all around, right? So you can add an image that is being mapped around the environment and it can give you those reflections. So say you upload a photograph of a 360 image of a beach, right? It'll give you the 360 view of it and the reflection will be casted onto those objects. It's a little bit more advanced for us right now, but it's there, right? And those you can download them or you can make them. All right. So then there's the backdrop, right? So I'm gonna. There's the lighting, right? The next step is the lighting. Right. You see that the first. What's the first sun right here? What's the first box? The sun, right? So go ahead and turn that on and off, right? So you see the change. Right, so you see on and off. And again, a lot of these changes won't become fully evident until you run the rendering. But within sun, right, you have sun settings. If you click there, right here, guys, so you have sun and you click on the sun settings, it brings this out, right? So this is the sun position and orientation. And then here you have date and time. Right, so right now is the year 2000. But I can change that and notice that my object changes the tones, the gradients. Now, if I click here on this button that says now, it's gonna do us now. All right. Well, actually, it says that we're somewhere in Ghana. Right? But if you scroll down on the map and you click where it says here, it should find us on the map. All right. This is right there. It finds us right there on the map. But then again, I can play right with this settings right here of the shadows, right, with the sliders. You can see, right, the shadows, right. We have that. And again, this rotation, right, it's again messing with the rotation of the sun. Again, if I turn manual control on, I can rotate the sun manually and, you know, the position of that. Right, so I click OK. Right, so I have a few of those settings. And those are basically the main settings that we'll be using from this Windows right here. The resolution and quality. Again, remember 300 for final, 150 for you know, just the test sprint, and 70 for just something just really quick, right? Something that you just want to start seeing how things are looking. Don't forget about the low, draft, good, and final quality, right? Good quality for right now. We might minimize that. The backdrop, we can choose the colors, right? We can set up the different background colors. Remove that right there. Lighting, we can turn the sun on. right, and gives us those hard shadows right there. And also the skylight will make a huge difference. Sometimes it's actually off, right? So off and on, off and on. And the skylight, so one thing is the sun. Think of the sun when there's no clouds, right? You see the sun and it's kind of like it's right on your face, and you're casting a really hard shadow, like a really hard shadow. Now think of a day, maybe like today, that it was daytime, of course, but it was casted. The sun wasn't out, but there's still light. That's what the skylight is. It doesn't give you the hard, right, light of the sun, right, but it gives an overall light to the environment, right? And for the most part, that should be on the skylight, right, and the sun, of course, as well. So if you go ahead and run a new rendering, right, so I click on render, go ahead and click on render as well. Let's see how long this one will take. And for me, it says, right, 13%, 56 seconds remaining, and then it goes down to 48, and then it goes back to 52, and now it goes back to a 1 minute, 1 minute and 3. So you see how it goes up and down, right? So let me pause. So again, it doesn't show me exactly how long this has been, but you see that little stop right there on the top? Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop rendering. Right, click right there and stop. Right, and it leaves it right there. So you're gonna end up with those streaks right there, those black marks right there, those black lines. That's it. Right, but I'm gonna go ahead and save it still, nonetheless. Right, this would be 3 for me. Render test 3 for me. All right, guys. Now let's do something more interesting, which is what Andrew was asking me about right now. Okay, so let's do this, guys. Let's do a number of boxes. All right, let's do. All right, guys. So I created a box right here. Okay, I'm gonna select the front face of it, and I'm gonna delete it. So I'm gonna create this box around the objects. Okay, and I'm gonna send it to its own layer. So I'm gonna send this to layer 1, I guess, right? So I select that, layer 1. Select the object, drop down menu, layer 1. All right, so I have created that. Everyone with me? Yeah? Natalia? Kinda? So I just, right? So Control Shift, select the front face, delete it. Yeah? Let's make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 copies. All right, copy, select everything inside, right? We'll do 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. All right, so we have 5 copies. So the next thing is to play with lighting. And light, there's actually quite a bit of a variety that we can do with light in Rhino. If you go, guys, right here on the top, it says render tools. Everyone here, render tools, right here on the top. Yeah? Antonio? Yeah? Natalia? All right. And then you guys go right here on the left on these yellow objects right here. The first one, if you place your cursor on top of it, it says create a what? Spotlight. Right next to it, it says create a what? Point light. After that, directional light. After that, rectangular. After that, linear light. All right, so let's see how each of those 5 behave differently. Okay, so let's do this together. Let's jump on a new layer. I'm going to do layer 3 for me. You just make sure that you select different layer for you, right? And let's start with the spotlight. Okay, the spotlight is one of the tricky ones. Not so much, just in order to draw it. All right, so I'm gonna click on create a spotlight. Yeah. All right, guys. So I'm gonna go into my multi-view settings right here. And so if you watch me, right? If you watch me before you draw yours, okay? So I'm gonna do a spotlight. All right. So I'm gonna click the base of the cone. Right. Oops. Right. We have that right there. So that's the base of the cone. Right. And then I create the end of the cone. Right. So I do something like that. All right. Now I'm gonna move it. You guys look at my perspective view. You guys see? When I start moving it, right, I have that spotlight right there. You guys see that? I'm gonna type copy, right, make another spotlight, and I'm gonna rotate it. All right, now you try creating a 2 spotlights within that first box. All right, so then next one, let's try a point light, right? Create a point light. So I click there, it says point light. I click inside of the box, do one right there. I'm gonna select it and then move it up, right? Notice how on my box right here, how bright it got, right? So I bring a spotlight right there. I'm sorry, not a spotlight, but a point light. The next one, try a directional light. Next one we're gonna try is a rectangular light, and I'm gonna use the entire uh-huh. What was that? Yeah, it might seem like it, but remember, everything there's a purpose for everything, right? I mean, if it's not shining a light, there is a reason for that. So just draw it right there. Just leave it right there. Now on the rectangular light, you'll see that you draw a rectangle for that rectangular light right there. Now notice that there's an arrow right there. That just, what does that arrow represent? The direction of the light. All right. So if I select it and rotate it 180 degrees, right? Oops. Rotate it 180 degrees, right? It's going to flip the direction of that light, right? So I'm gonna rotate it again 180 degrees. It rotates down right there. And then lastly, guys, try doing the linear light, right? So you see that that's just a strip of lights, right? So I'm going to do it from there to there. Let me do that, lower it. Maybe from there to there. See what happens. Make a copy over here. All right, guys. So let me borrow your attention again real quick. All right. So you should have 5 boxes, right? If I can borrow your attention real quick, if you look up here, right, I have a box right here that has linear lights. Are those blue lines right there? I keep going. I have one that has this rectangular light that is just shining light down on these objects right there. That's a big rectangular light. Think about maybe this ceiling light that we have right here. Right? You see how it just disperses the light, just looks like a big old white rectangle. The next one is this directional light right here, the one that Antonio says that it looks like it's not doing anything, right? It's just that arrow that we have here. The next one is my point light, which is that little dot that you see right there on the back. And the first one is my 2 spotlights. Okay. All right, guys, find this icon on the right of your tools right here, which says lights. You guys see it? It's not there? So if you right click and then you hit where it says lights, you see it now? All right, guys, these are all the lights that we have inserted so far. Right, spotlight, right? So if I click on the first one, notice that it's a spotlight right there. Second is another spotlight, is the point light, directional, right? Rectangular, you guys see it? Yeah, rectangular, linear. You guys see that? Yeah? All right, now, if you guys click right on this white boxes, you see them right here on the right? Notice that you can change the what? The color, right? So what happens if I start having green lights? And again, if you go to your render display mode, you start seeing some of that. I think you should. Or you can select them, like the directional. I think the directional is bringing too much, right? So I can turn them on and off. So there's that little light bulb on the left. Right, so you can add these different colors. Now, not all of them have to be colored. Yeah. Yeah, right. So you have the light bulbs, and I can turn them off, right? And you see how the colors start kind of popping up differently. Right, so if I go to the first one right here and I turn that spotlight on, right, it gives me those two spotlights right there. All right, so I'm going to run a rendering. I'm just first going to set the rendering to a low quality one, so it doesn't take too long. So in the resolution, I'm just going to go to low quality. I'm going to hit render, right, and it's going to allow me to see, right, what's going on inside of the box. So see that, for example, that's good. I'm glad that I set it to low, because you can see that it's actually a really bad rendering. So I didn't want to wait 20 minutes to realize that it's something that it's not really working out, right? But I do see the two spotlights right there. You see it? Yeah. I'm going to close that right there. The next one, right? So I'm going to turn off those two spotlights. Turn this one on. Right? And then maybe set up my view right there. What happens if I hit render? So that's interesting, right? I mean, it creates a very dramatic, right? So that was the point light, and it's hidden right here behind this. So think of that, think of those point lights as a really bright light bulb. So a light bulb that is round like a sphere. So it's just like a sphere of light, right? So it creates that one right there. I should be saving this probably. Wait, what? If I put a red wall? A red wall? You can try it. It just depends. It's just like there's some common laws, right? There's a law. I mean, it depends on the transparency of the plastic that you're saying, right? If it's transparent, just maybe, right? But all of these concepts that and I didn't turn them on. All of these concepts that we're applying, they're trying to mimic real life conditions, right? So if it's a translucent plastic, the one that you're saying, would it go through? Yeah, it should. Now, how much? Well, that's just something that you have to test, right? How much it actually goes through, right? So have you guys changed some of the colors for the lights? Right? So start running some really low or draft quality renders on your boxes, so you can start seeing the changes, differences, right? So that's my spotlight one, right? It's done, right? So I'm gonna save that. So that should be 4 right there. Save that right there. Close this. I'm gonna move on to my third one, which was the directional. Maybe I'll do like green right there. So I'll do render right there. So I changed my directional light to green. You see how I get that really strong shadow, well, that really hard light. So I'm gonna do that. Turn that one off. Let's do this one's over here. So it's that one, that one, that one, that one. So it's getting all sorts of groovy elements right there. Start doing that render. Oh wait, wrong one. Wrong one. That should be. This one should be the rectangular light, which is that white one. That's what we're working with. So I'll do that. Render. Sun? Yeah. What about it? Sun. Type sun, enter. S-U-N. Type S-U-N and then enter. Oops, and time is that's gonna be a right one. All right, guys. Well, make sure that you play with this experiment. Let me. I have the folder right here. These are some of the ones that again we have created today. You can see the difference of these. Right. So if I just go through these images right here, right. Again, the one that I didn't finish, let finish, right. But we have spotlights. We have the point light. We have the directional light right here. We have the rectangular light, which is coming from above. And then the last one, which is this one that is being rendered, is the one that I use, linear lighting. So lighting, it's a whole other layer, right? It's a whole secondary, tertiary layer that affects the design, right? And it affects the display, well, not only display but aesthetic qualities, right, of your model, right? So make sure that you, well, first of all, you invest in materials, right? I mean that you apply the right materials throughout your model, and then that you play with lighting so that your renderings can become something really interesting. And again, I think Lily already closed hers, right? But if just glancing at what Lily had on her screen, that was looking really good. So I'm gonna pause questions right now between materials, lights, rendering. Just a really brief introduction. Yeah. All right. So again, I recorded this class right here, this lecture. So that was about 45 minutes right here. So I'm gonna pause this right now.